Sam Kemble of Workforce Delivery Inc. Today I speak to you about harassment, bullying, and violence. In fact, we're starting a series on this just because there's enough movement in this area that will be of interest to firms which we believe to be our stakeholders, that being construction companies operating in Western Canada. We believe that there's enough movement that has the impact to has the potential to impact your operations and in any event increase or adjust the risk profile of respect in the workplace issues and their impact on your organization, that there'll be A, value, and B, interest in having a look more deeply at different aspects of this. So what brings us here today is the Me Too movement, for one. Just like most Canadians, we're watching the developments of some fairly high-profile harassment investigations, and just, I guess, noting the impact that has on perceptions on what employers' obligations are, and also what their responses should be in respect to harassment investigations. Also, there's Bill 30, and that's a statute in Alberta, but it's not unique to Alberta. The statute introduces the concept that injury arising from interpersonal conflict at work that's not physical may be compensable. And in addition to those two, we want to take note of some different court decisions pertaining to wrongful dismissal cases, where various courts have signaled the willingness to get into tort-like damages, particularly when an employment consequence is suffered by a former employee, which relied on an investigation that, let's just say, was wanting. So all these three things, in fact, push employers in different directions. It could be argued that Me Too would motivate an employer potentially to bias their work rule and the response to allegations arising from the work rule in favor of the complainant. And having said that, the potential for the compensability of injury arising from an interpersonal conflict at work has the potential to change the nature slightly of how different employers may investigate an issue arising from an interpersonal conflict, rolling into claims management and whatnot. And in addition to the courts also saying that you better get it right, otherwise, if you actually act on an investigation that's not adequately done, the complainant may have a claim, and if that investigation is found to be insufficient, the courts are signaling a willingness to award damages over and above lost wages and notice periods and whatnot. So just for a moment, I want to take to get right-sized on this, because I don't think it's as bad as everyone is saying. And I can tell you, if someone asked me to benchmark, Sam, I'd like you to take a temperature read of where corporate Canada is at in relations to respect in workplace policies, harassment, bullying, and violence, both the policy and the work rules. Where would you look? And I can tell you, the last place I would look would be Hollywood, and also the Ashley Madison capital of the world, Ottawa. Ottawa and Hollywood are not an accurate reflection of where corporate Canada is in relation to harassment, bullying, and violence policies. So this is a little bit, we just need to get right-sized. And I would even go so far as to say that Hollywood and Ottawa and different political organizations are about 15 to 20 years behind where the rest of Canada is. I mean, we've been at this for quite a while. Now, in terms of who I would benchmark against, would be the Construction Owners Association of Alberta Respect in the Workplace Toolkit. And this work on this started in 2004 with the potential, and actually what was driving it was because of a shortage of wages in the construction industry. The stakeholders wanted to increase the attractiveness of the construction industry to a greater part of the population, that being women and underrepresented groups. So that policy was developed, designed, researched heavily. It was cutting edge at the time. It's pretty much cutting edge still today. And in addition, by design, the policy was developed to be plagiarized. The committee wanted to change what the performance and what was happening at the workplace. So it was copyrighted only so that others couldn't copyright it and bar an open source nature of the work rule. And the tools available there are very robust, and the idea was that employers would take it off the shelf and just implement it in their workplace. So that's where I would benchmark. And actually that's where I would plan to take this series here, is just to hold up what's going on out in the Me Too movements, the statutory changes and the torts against the respect in the workplace work rule, and see what modifications or I would say tactical considerations might be warranted to adjust to this slightly changing circumstance, because it's not as huge a change for employers who have had a standard, consistently implied that standard, and responded to complaints with appropriate investigative structures. So what we're going to do is talk about that. We're going to break it down into specifically the Me Too movement impact, the Bill 30 impact, and we're going to break it into also a commentary on the prospect of damages, which just really emphasizes the need to get the investigation right. Then we're going to have a segment that gives some tips on investigations themselves. We're going to look at proportional responses as well for consequences for violation of the work rule. We're going to also then look at gender and discrimination aspects of work rules in generally, and also add, and this would be a little bit more cutting edge, cultural sensitivity aspect to applying this rule and others within the workplace. So if you want to track this series, please just subscribe by clicking our logo in the corner. And we look forward to sharing this with you, and look forward to your comments.